Well, hello! Isn't it a lovely morning? There's not a cloud in deep space. I'm ready to take on the day.
Libertarians, who are really just baby conservatives. They're conservatives in training.
I'm going back to bed.
Obviously, this is a completely, fully thought out social political philosophy that was totally not just pulled out of somebody's rear end in the last few days.
You mean like this video?
You know who doesn't have to get into these fights? The Libertarians. It's actually kind of because the Libertarians don't really stand for anything.
Say what? Lady, you ever heard of a thing called the non-aggression principle? That's what we stand for. That's the basis for all libertarian thought. If you don't even know the basis for someone's political philosophy, maybe you'd better do some research before mouthing off on it, you think?
So here's my problem with Libertarians. The same guys who are busy making fun of Facebook for having 71 different gender options
That's just people who understand science.
are the ones who are calling themselves anarcho-capitalist, prehistoric libertarian fusionists.
Who calls themselves that? Do you even know what those terms mean?
Yeah, I'm a libertarian. Don't you dare misgender me and call me a conservative.
Moron, you do realize that political philosophies and genders are two entirely different kinds of categories, right?
Some days I actually feel a little authoritarian.
No libertarian says that, Maggie. Libertarianism and authoritarianism are mutually exclusive.
But I do go into my Twitter profile and make sure to change all the hashtags so you know to not call me a libertarian that day.
Who does this? Citation needed.
I'm a conservative. Before I change something, I have to be convinced that it has to be changed, and that this new idea is the right way to change it. Very simple.
Great! You do know the definition of conservative. So a conservative is someone who conserves the status quo, absent evidence that it should be changed. Libertarians consider this a fallacy. You don't get to keep doing aggression just because the aggression was always done. The burden should never have been put on the abolitionists to say why slavery should be abolished. Even though slavery had been the norm for thousands of years, the burden of proof should still have been on the pro-slavery people, the conservatives in that issue, to demonstrate why this heinous aggression against peaceful people should continue.
If I had a gender for every true political legitimate allegiance there was, I would have two genders.
Right. Libertarian and authoritarian. You either want to use force to make peaceful people live their lives a certain way, or you don't. No in between.
The intersex people in this analogy, I think, would be people who own dual citizenship.
You mean like progressives who in the abortion issue say it's the woman's body and therefore her right to choose, but don't extend that to things like her taking drugs or engaging in prostitution? Or like conservatives, who say it's wrong to intrude on how someone runs their business, but want to put all sorts of restrictions on what happens in the bedroom.
If you're mad or triggered, then this is probably the first time that someone has come into your little safe libertarian space.
Lady, you're projecting so hard I could use you to watch Lord of the Rings from way out here. We aren't the ones running off to our safe spaces. We actively seek out dissenting opinions. That's how I found your video. One of my libertarian friends, Dave Turcotte, sent the link to me. The fact is, we are constantly looking for dissenting political opinions so we can reason through them. And we find it easy to counter these claims and assertions. Do you have any idea how little time I spent making this response to you? We write articles. We make videos. We produce audio podcasts, all explaining in great detail exactly what it is your politicians, pundits, and propagandists are saying and why it is wrong. For crying out loud, I have a whole series just begging statists to come up with rational arguments for their positions, in the vain hope that one day they will. So far, nothing. You are the ones running off to your safe spaces. That's what you're doing right now, by outright lying about us and what we say and do, by refusing to even mention the basis for libertarian philosophy, by denying that there even is one. You don't want to pay any attention to any of that because it's not coming from your team, and everyone on your team repeats the same propaganda. So every time we get into a political discussion, we already know what you're going to say as soon as we know which team you're on. We already have the response to your propaganda, and we already know that you're going to act irrationally when we respond. It's extremely frustrating because we've actually put a great deal of effort into this, and these repetitive arguments are exhausting, especially because you never even acknowledge them, let alone respond to them. Oh geez, I just noticed we're only 2.5 minutes into a 13-minute video.
And said that you're all absolutely insane and you're arguing over whether or not pot should be legal when the entire house is on fire.
I have no idea what this is even supposed to mean. First of all, the war on drugs is a huge issue, and ending that insane war is an issue you'd think regressives will be behind, since it's one of the big things holding back blacks in this society who are disproportionately in low-income areas experiencing the crime that results from it. But it's not that surprising when you realize that progressivism is an offshoot of the eugenics movement, and this is actually by design. You'd also think conservatives will be against it too, since it's an intrusion into the free market. Once again, the rhetoric doesn't meet the road. But it's not like pot is the only thing we complain about. We complained about corrupt cops and police shootings way before Black Lives Matter. And we complained about it regardless of the skin color of the victims. We complain about the wars and demand that the troops be brought home and the psychopathic drone strikes ended. We complain about government writing regulations that favor banks and big corporations, modern-day mercantilism. We talk about the Federal Reserve and the problems that stem from a fiat currency with an inflationary monetary policy, things that your team largely supports. So again, thanks for the projection. Maybe I'll use it to watch The Matrix later.
Libertarians don't use their platforms to talk about boring things like regulating cooperation between two police departments.
We talk about having multiple police departments that people can choose between, giving them competition, and which would require them to cooperate with each other, either directly or through trusted third parties. So yeah, another desperate lie.
So do you want to talk about regulating sales between states?
We do, all the time. We're the ones talking about getting rid of the barriers stopping people from buying health insurance from across state lines. And where were you when we were complaining about the internet sales tax, something that is a blatant violation of the Commerce Clause? And don't use the fact that you're Canadian to weasel out of it. Canada largely implemented this tax too, and is in the process of extending it to streaming services like Netflix. So where are you?
Or maybe maintaining clean facilities, or is that too boring for you?
Ever watched John Stossel? Ever even heard of John Stossel? He's broadcast multiple stories showing the way to have clean facilities. Make them private, because government just doesn't care.
The Libertarians are definitely doing better than conservatives on social media right now. And the reason they're so popular is because the political philosophy that they ascribe to is fun and it is irreverent.
And it is the only one that doesn't involve pointing guns at peaceful people. Did it ever occur to you that that just might have something to do with it?
A lot of these libertarians are going to end up being conservative in the next 5 to 10 years.
Citation needed. Maybe you'd care to explain why the Libertarian Party's growth has outpaced that of the Republican Party in the U.S.
I'm officially old enough that I can say, well, when I was your age, or now that I'm older, this is what I think, and it's great. I love getting older. I don't know anybody who wouldn't like this. I just get to be cranky at people all the time. I don't think that I know any libertarians over the age of 25.
I don't think you know any libertarians at all. You certainly haven't listened to any. Ironic, though, since traditionally we've been called a movement of old farts. The narrative just changes to suit whatever you need it to at the moment, doesn't it?
It's not that we don't like fun, it's just that when you get older, you start caring about things like car loans and paycheck deductions.
Which is why we're constantly complaining about those and how government meddling has made those a lot larger than they should be. Yeah, you've never actually had a discussion with one single libertarian, have you?
There are parliamentary bills coming up, in places like Canada, that will throw you in jail if you use somebody's gender pronouns incorrectly.
And we complain about that, too.
Libertarians will always end up as conservatives when they hit a wall and realize that it's not just a fun game anymore, it's real life.
It's really ironic that she's accusing us of only having opinions on the fun issues, when traditionally we're chastised for focusing on boring issues like economics. Like how the minimum wage destroys jobs for the very people it's supposed to help. Or how inflation results in a transfer of wealth from the poor and middle class to the banks, politicians, and their cronies. Why haven't you looked at any of that content? Couldn't stay awake through it?
Now, when these libertarians get older, they get to choose between being right-wing or conservative.
No, we still get to choose non-aggression, not forcing people to live their lives the way we think they should.
Spoiler, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and so is progressivism and conservatism, using force against peaceful people because they're not behaving in a way you think they should.
Oh, I'm not a right-winger. I'm not a conservative. I believe in
the non-aggression principle. You can't even say it, can you?
There is no authoritarian, libertarian. It's not... you don't get a nice, big, pretty graph to choose from.
Nah, that Nolan chart is dope, yo.
It really is right-wing versus left-wing.
No, it's moralistic busybodies using the guns of government to force their way on others versus libertarians.
But, if I get along with somebody else, it's because we have the same values.
Ah, I get it now. You do live in an echo chamber, whereas mature people can have friends who disagree on all sorts of things. I'm an atheist who has Christian, Jewish, and even Muslim friends. I'm a libertarian who has both liberal and conservative friends. So I think I see the source of your projection. You want to pretend that other people need to grow up when it's you who has a lot of maturing to do.
I have a value that's very, very important to me, very close to my heart. I truly believe that people should use coasters whenever they're at somebody else's house.
If that person wants you to use coasters, then yes, use coasters. We have a name for that value, property rights. It's their house, so they get to make the rules.
So if I want to share that value with you, then we have shared values.
That's the difference between us, Mags. I can respect someone and use coasters at their house, even if I don't use coasters at home. Just like I can respect the right of gays to get married without being gay, or the right of someone to smoke pot without being a pot smoker.
Virtue is really in between two vices. The opposite of overspending or, greed is being miserly. Neither of those things are very good. You have to find a nice middle ground.
You mean an equilibrium? Like an equilibrium interest rate to help keep the appropriate amount of savings in the economy without affecting consumption too much, as opposed to the Fed creating money and inflating the supply of loanable funds to keep interest rates artificially low so there's not as much savings as there needs to be? Please, tell me more.
What that middle ground is? If you can figure that out, then you're a better man than I.
Exactly, which is why we don't need your government. We need the price mechanism to help people work out the best way on their own. If you'd get over your smarmy self-superiority and actually listen to libertarians and research the data we refer to, you just might find you agree with us a lot more than you think. Oh, but that would mean going against your team, wouldn't it?
Everything that a right-winger believes in is not the exact opposite of what a left-winger believes.
But what an authoritarian believes is the opposite of what a libertarian believes. Using force for non-defensive purposes or not. That's a true dichotomy.
If you're a libertarian, you're trying to be socially liberal and also fiscally conservative.
No, we're trying to remove aggression from our lives. It's more accurate to say that liberals are socially libertarian and conservatives are fiscally libertarian. Don't mix it up.
If you are socially liberal in your personal life, you're going out, you're partying.
Oh, for the love of... That's not what it means, Maggie! It means being tolerant of other lifestyles, like homosexuality. You can be introverted and still be for social liberty.
You're buying cool new things, you're covering all your friends' costs. You are not being fiscally conservative, that is, if you're being socially liberal. You're spending all of your money on all these social things.
That's not what it means either, Mags. We love charity. We have no problem with people voluntarily giving their own money to help others. We even encourage it. What we're against is government taking that money by force from others, even if it is ostensibly to help the poor or the environment or whatever. It's the force we object to.
If you're socially liberal, you're spending liberally on your social causes. You cannot be socially liberal and fiscally conservative. It makes no sense.
Because you don't know what those terms mean.
When you're fiscally liberal, you end up going into debt.
Yeah, $20 trillion. But again, debt itself isn't bad if you're doing it to yourself and have to cover the costs yourself. You'll either make a good decision or a bad one, but either way, you're the one who has to face the consequences. What we object to is force. Forcing debt on other people, especially children and the unborn, who will have to pay taxes to cover it, but never got to vote for the politicians who incurred the debt. Taxation without representation.
You know what really hurts the economy? Single motherhood and divorce.
Yeah, and not using force to impose onerous regulations that favor crony corporations over smaller businesses. No, it's those single mothers. It's their fault.
Social liberals are the ones who are willing to pay for all these programs.
No, that's fiscal liberals. Geez, Mags, you can just look this stuff up.
Social conservatives, we don't really want to cut welfare programs because we're evil and we want to save money. We want to cut social programs
because you're fiscal conservatives. This is fiscal conservatism, Mags.
There are untold numbers of people in jail who are only there because their parents were able to make terrible, destructive decisions supported by these socially liberal governments.
And 80% of them are in jail for nonviolent offenses like possession of pot. You know, the thing you've been ridiculing us for opposing.
Older people are naturally conservative because of life experience. You might have friends that fit all 71 gender options on Facebook, but I've had friends who've gone through kids and marriage and divorce and, death of loved ones, death of parents. Like, incredibly difficult things have happened to a lot of my friends.
I've been through all of those, Maggie. Maybe stop making assumptions about people because of their political affiliation, you think?
But there's something really admirable and stable about the married friends that I have who are raising kids in a two-parent household.
You don't think there might be a selection bias there, Mags? You're only looking at the ones that stayed together. How many of those single-parent households are that way because the other partner was abusive? And how well off do you think those children would have been if they'd stayed in an environment with an abusive parent? You don't see what those single-parent households would have been like if the other parent had stayed. Bastiat, Mags, give them a read.
But whether you think that everyone is a special snowflake who must be treated as such, or whether you think that
God, that music is annoying.
Everyone should, act on and then be held accountable for their actions, whether good or bad, is the only political divide that really matters.
No, it's about whether or not we should use force to make other people conform to our political views. With libertarianism, you could be a conservative or a progressive or even a communist in your own life voluntarily with the people you associate with. A libertarian society would allow you to do that. No other political philosophy will.
Let me know in the comments whether or not I'm completely off the mark about this libertarian thing.
Lady, you're so far off the mark you need GPS to get back to it. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, why not hit like and subscribe? And to make sure I can keep producing content, support this channel by becoming a patron. And check out all the other great content here, like this video selected especially for you.